So in this video, we want to know how to construct the frequency distribution and the histogram. So in the class, we know the frequency distribution and the histogram are used to describe the quantitative variable and one quantitative variable. So how can we use Excel to construct those two visual description for the data? First, after you download the data, and you need to look at the first page called example 1 GPA. So we have 120 observations here, and for the GPA we know the range is from 0 to 4. So try to think about how the histogram and frequency distribution looks like. So they have different classes, and the classes are decided by yourself. So the same idea here, the Excel will not tell you how to create the classes. So you need to tell Excel how you define each classes. Let's see, our class is defined from 0 to 1 is our first class, and the second class is 1 to 2, third is 2 to 3, 4 is and about 4. So we can define like that. So in order to tell the Excel how you define the classes, you need to create a new column called the bin range. So the bin range is like the upper limit of each class. So let's see, 0 to 1 is our first class, 1 to 2 is our second class, 2 to 3 is our fourth class, 3 to 4 is our fourth class. So now you tell the Excel what is the upper limit of each class. So we can start to create our frequency distribution and histogram. First, click the data analysis again. So we use it when we were trying to find a descriptive statistic. So we click the data analysis. So we have different analysis tools before use the descriptive statistics. But now we want to create a histogram and the frequency distribution. So if you look a little bit below in the descriptive statistic, you should find there is one option called histogram. So choose histogram, the background will become like blue, and click OK. So now you see this window called histogram. So it also have the input area and output areas. So input area, you need to let Excel know where is your original data. So the input range is the first column from A1 to A121. So you can either choose it or you can just type in the cells. So for the bin range, so you can see we have already defined the bin range. That is, you need to tell the Excel how you define the classes. So in my case, it's from F3 to F7. So you can click this little icon choosing data. So that is another option. So again, you can see both from A1 to A120 and from F3 to F7, both of these two columns, including the label. One is the GPA, another is bin range. So you need to check this little box called the labels. So now you finish the input area. So let's look at the output options. So we can place our result in a new worksheet. So let's name it called histogram. And also, since we have the histogram, so you need to check the chart output. Without checking this one, you will only have the frequency distribution, but we'll want the histogram and the frequency distribution. So you need to check this box. So now we can click OK. So before we only have example 1, example 2, example 3, but now we have one more page called histogram, which we just created. So now, if you look at the histogram here, so obviously it's not what we want. So in the class, we emphasize the difference between a histogram and bar chart. We shouldn't have the gap between two rectangles. So what should we do? So in order to correct the graph, you need to choose one of either one or two, meaning rectangles. So after you choose it, left double click your mouse. So after you left double click your mouse, you will have this window called the Format Data Point. And under this windows, they have the series option. And the series option here, we have the gap width. So now it's 150%, which means between two rectangles, they have 150% gap. So we need to close it. How should we do? We just need to scroll this bar to the left-hand side to 0%. Now you can look at the histogram again. So there is no gap between two rectangles. Now you can close it. So that is how we created the frequency distribution here and our histogram.